welcome back to the channel. FUBAR here, and today, as you can see, we are doing a tier maker list of all the officers inside Warpath. So I'm going to give a brief explanation why I put these officers in the certain positions, and we're going to go from there. Alright, let's get into it. So the very first officer we're going to be doing today is actually Spanner. Now Spanner is a legacy officer. He comes at the start of the game, and I think he belongs in C tier. Because the reason why is because he's useful in the beginning of the game. He has one skill that's still very useful. Well, two skills I can argue that are very useful. And the reason why I say they're useful is because one is a special skill which you can apply to any tank unit, and it will recover HP at the end of battle. And he also has a siege skill that increases damage to fortifications, which is super useful when pairing with artillery units. Now Percy, I'm going to say she's also C tier. The reason why I'm going to say she's C tier is because she has a very fast fall off. She does buff troops. She is useful in the beginning of the game, but after 75 days, you're going to see her value drop very, very badly. Death Adder, same thing. He has some useful skills, but most of them can be only sheared, and he's not worth it to invest in other than those skills. So, and specifically, I believe it's his second skill, he gives a damage buff. So I wouldn't even, it's a good skill tab for any unit, but he just doesn't have anything else worth of value. Angel of Light. Angel of Light, I'm going to say, is B tier. The reason why is because if you use infantry, she's really, really good for tanking bases with Everbloom. She also, fun fact, used to be the meta way back in the day when the game first released, before we had all these officers, with Spanner for SH for tanking bases. She's still really good, but she's solely infantry, but that she's still good for infantry. Bloody Mary, same as Death Adder, she has a very fast step fall off, but she does have skills that are useful for other units, so she will belong in C tier. Antony Evchenko, easily S tier. Still to this day, she's a legacy officer. She is like one of the GOATs. The reason why is because she gives you an extra grid range. She does amazing damage with the artillery if you need to have her awakened. Now, White Wolf. White Wolf, I honestly believe she belongs in B tier. She's a solid choice for infantry. You get her as a legacy officer. You can completely awaken her for free through daily missions, just like Bloody Mary and Spanner, but she holds more value, especially if you're an infantry player. And where I kind of specialize across all the way across the board with infantry, tanks, artillery, and aircraft, this is honestly a very good stance for her. Now we're going to cover Guardian of Truth right now, and he's going to be our first A tier officer. He is pay to win, but he is way cheaper than the exclusive lounge officers. I believe you get him for about 250 to 300 bucks USD, and he, next to Antony Evchenko, is a very solid choice for tanks if you want to make that investment. He has solid skills to be shared, and he's solid all the way around. Eruptor, I'll have to put him in B tier. He is one of two siege specialist officers in the game for artillery. He is a legacy officer. He's not as good as other officers, but he still does bring a lot to the table. War Machine, another legacy officer that is completely free to play. You can get his statues completely free just through the Alliance store. I wish I woken him up sooner. He is awesome with any officer you put him with. He has a ton of valuable skills. Definitely worth the investment. Wings of Glory, D tier. Instantly D tier. He has almost nothing of value, in my opinion, as an Air Force officer. His skills are okay for sharing, but he is not good at all. Golden Pixie. Now, I'm going to get some flack for this, but I'm going to actually put her in B tier. Yes, she gives you an additional bombing run. Yes, her skills are valuable. But is that practical on the battlefield? No. Your bombers, you need to be able to hit and run, and getting that extra map grid is giving you, extra bombing pass is actually going to just leave you open for fighters to intercept you. And that right there, it just comes down to your overall opinion, and this is my opinion. Brisk Eagle, Out of the Air Force officers, she's one of the better ones because she's versatile and she does well on bomber and fighter. Worth the investment, but not a priority right off the gate. Heaven's Savior, D tier. He is not worth the investment. He is a defensive fighter plane officer that is specialized for tanking like bases, and not many people still actually like bomb bases with Liberty bombers. So yeah, he doesn't really bring a lot to the table, but his skills can still be used to be shared with others. Now, Tip of Spear, I use him, but he is a B tier officer. He does bring a lot of value to the table for infantry players. He brings a lot of value for base defense. But he just doesn't have anything that kind of speaks out about him unless he's awakened. Steel Fighter, A tier. Gotta be A tier. She has the highest shield coefficient amongst all the officers. She's great on defense, great on base defense. You need to have her. El Cartero, easily A tier. Arguably could be S tier, but we're gonna leave him right there for now. He is super good on a mortar bomber. He slows down units. He does tick damage with them. Very, very potent. Winter Huntsman, another legacy officer that you used to unlock when you first went to Moscow and still can. He is, I have to say, an A tier officer. He does provide a lot. He has a great awakened skill, decent skill damage for your first before your 75-day opening. I mean, he does really good. I'm pretty sure actually you won't have access to him until 120 days. I'm not 100% certain on that, but he's still very good, and I see him being used all the time in the battlefield still to this day. Witcher, gotta be B tier. The reason why is she's strictly defensive for bomber or fighter. Doesn't really bring a whole lot to the table. I mean, she's like a weaker version of Nagarani. So there we go. Iron Bastion. Iron Bastion D tier. This is by hands down one of the worst infantry officers in the game. Do not invest in this officer at all. Polar Phantom A tier, man. This dude is awesome, especially if you pair him with Nagarani. He does well with Blade Wing. He does well all around, all corners. Berserker Bear. Berserker Bear, I have to say he would be a B tier officer. He does do good damage, but he does specialize more so with rocket launchers and the Katusha. I do not really favor him. He does well on other artillery, but he just is lacking a little bit, in my opinion. But he does have skills that are valuable to be shared. Silver Comet, I gotta say B tier. You can argue him being A tier, but the fact that you have to deploy his brother Tip of Spear into a garrison, he doesn't have to be trained. The unit does not have to be trained for him to get his max capability. Kinda drowns it out for me. And yes, Tip of Spear does not have to be awakened for that to work. Argent Flame, easily S tier. One of the few officers in the game that does AoE damage, in which when I say AoE, area of effect, meaning he hits multiple targets at once. Yeah, he was the first one to do it other than White Wolf, but man, it is awesome. Thorn Countess, I'm gonna say A tier. She goes hand in hand with Steel Fighter. You want to pair her with Steel Fighter for your base shield, because once you have Thorn Countess awakened, if you have her as a lead, she'll strengthen the shield that you get from Steel Fighter as the aid, and it will all apply to your base shield. And she's very handy on the field of battle as well. She will negate officer skill damage. She has a decent shield size. She boosts attack damage. I mean, the damage of your troop as well. Overall, very solid. Lady Justice, arguably an upgrade to Winter Huntsman. She is very valuable. She does a lot, brings a lot to the table. She's a versatile officer. That means she'll be good on any tank unit. And if you had to, and you had her awakened and you didn't have another officer awakened, say for an RL, you could throw her on there and it actually would perform somewhat okay with the damage. But it wouldn't be like anything you want to write home about. Eye of Providence, definitely S tier. The best siege officer in the game. He literally is a cheat code. He will melt bases really quick. Valkyrie, S tier. She really brings a lot to the table. She's good on any tank officer. She shines really well on helicopters. I mean, she brings a lot. Golden Eagle, S tier. Goes good on ATG. Goes good on infantry. Goes good on any tank unit. Yeah, this guy right here is the GOAT of versatility officers for free to play. Oh yeah, and not to mention he also buffs up your base defense as well. Blade Wing, I have to say definitely S tier for free to play. He does a ton of damage on your fighter plane. He does good overall. He does have a downside of doing some damage to himself, but that I don't notice that very often happening. So definitely going to be S tier. Vox, going to be A tier. She brings a lot to the table as far as base defense, and also inside the arena she does really, really well. And she also is buffing all your troops while garrisoned in the base. She's a must-have if you're going to be on base defense. Whipcracker. Whipcracker goes down to B category. She's the only defensive tank officer that actually has a damage coefficient. But right now, there's a lot of questions going on with Whipcracker versus her with the MBT right now. I have not yet been able to confirm. My whale friend has not logged into the game yet. And but yeah, if it's working properly, her awakened skill of giving you a 500 shield coefficient for 4 seconds should stack with the MBT's 1000 shield coefficient, giving you a 1500 shield coefficient. If this is true and not bugged, she would be an A tier. Tiger Marauder, C tier. Only way he's useful is if he's awakened. And this is my opinion. He doesn't bring a lot to the table, but he is a legacy officer. Rising Star, A tier. He's an awesome bomber officer. He does a guaranteed damage coefficient of 1700. He speeds up those bombing runs, which is very, very valuable. I mean, like, the faster you can get in and out and drop your bombs and get back to base, the better your survivability on the battlefield to keep bombing targets is. Svalin. Svalin is kind of a niche officer that I would say has to go into B category. And the reason why is because he does well overall. He buffs normal attack damage. He provides a decent shield. I believe he also reduces officer skill damage. I'm not 100% sure. But the biggest drawback is his awakened skill mainly revolves around the super heavy. Now, if you're using a super heavy, this is great. This is an S tier officer for you. But if not, his skills alone put him in B tier just for sharing. Lonesome Star, I have to say he goes in C tier because he has very good skills, and but it just doesn't proc often enough. He has a shield skill that doesn't proc often enough, and in comparison to other officers, you're kind of gambling when running him on an infantry unit. Inferno is going to be right next to El Cartero. This is a great pairing. They do the most bomber damage on the Marauder bomber together, and they do insanely well. And I mean insanely well. I honestly, for a Marauder bomber, I would run El Cartero and Inferno in regards of over Rising Star and Lone Eagle because they just synergize so well together. Nagarani, S tier, best Air Force defensive officer to date. She provides shield. She increases damage resistance, much like how Polar Phantom's Grit does. I mean, she's a really tough cookie to beat when that's on a fighter plane. And not only that, she cancels out the Witcher's shield skill because she does extra damage to shields. So, yeah, she's definitely up there. Warrior Wiz, I gotta say, needs to be. A lot of people like him, but I don't. I think his animation of his awakened skill is kind of wonky and he kills it for me. But he does have valuable skills. And he's an event-only officer, so that kind of kills him. Not everyone will have access to him, so not the greatest choice. Bomb Princess, C tier, almost actually D tier. She does have a skill shared between her and Warrior Wiz that is very good, but that's about it. Maestro is going to go in the A tier. The reason why I'm going to put him in A tier is because he synergizes so well with other officers with that shield reduction. Like, you could put him in Golden Eagle on an ATG and he will do good. You could put him in Golden Eagle on a howitzer and it will do well. You could put him in red heat on an ATG or a howitzer and it will do well. It's an AoE officer that does a ton and brings a ton to the table. And a lot of people sleep on him. Everbloom, S tier infantry officer. Hands down, this officer is the only reason why infantry can actually tank bases. It's the only reason. And not only that, she does very, very well when paired with Herald of Peace. So she can be also used for offense. She provides that extra durability. Yes, the infantry is still squishy to RL and howitzers, but it's still very, very durable. Rapier, S tier, yet again. This officer is insane. If you are in a light tank, MBT, or heli, and you put this guy on there, and I say you run him with Uncle or Valkyrie, you're going to be shredding through units like it's no tomorrow. The only downside to him is that he has a skill that is shared with specifically the light, but it's not a major skill, so it doesn't really hurt you. Now on to Stinger Fist. Hands down S tier. He does awesome when paired with Argent Flame. Argent Flame obviously being the leader. He provides extra base damage resist. He does AoE damage. He does extra damage on, I believe, defense. And he also buffs damage as well. Just really, really awesome. Uncle. Uncle has to be S tier. For some reason, this is weird, okay? On a tank unit, Uncle really buffs up the survivability of that tanking unit. Say MBT, it's insanely hard to kill, and his special skill where he does the coin flip buffs the damage and gives you an extra fighting chance. I mean, he's insane. He also gives you base damage, officer skill damage, resist. He reduces normal base damage, normal attack damage on base. I mean, he's definitely a must-have in an Awakens. Sky Jockey. I've heard a lot of flack about Sky Jockey so far. A lot of people saying she's not worth it and whatnot. And I haven't been able to test her yet, so I'm going to put her right in B tier for now. But the funny thing about Sky Jockey is if you want a blast cannon of a fighter plane, and say you got one fighter plane tanking, put her in, you're a pay-to-win player, Dark Wings is the way to go with that. Him and her together, you're going to have insane criticals all day long. Herald of Peace, one of the better infantry officers, and it's also the first animal officer in the game that is actually really cool because he has some historical World War II lore, and that I love. And his abilities are actually really, really good. Lone Eagle. Let me tell you right now, Lone Eagle is S tier. He's good on any of the bombers. Specifically, he has very specific skills for the Liberty Bomber, but in my opinion, he shines on the Vanguard and Martyr. And you pair him with Rising Star, I mean, come on. You're looking at easily, with just the two of them, 3,900 damage coefficient just in officer skills. That's kind of nuts. That's a game changer for the Vanguard Bomber. I mean, because the main difference between a Vanguard and Martyr Bomber is how many units they hit when they drop their bomb. The Vanguard Bomber hits all the units equally, and while the Martyr Bomber hits 3 specific units when dropping bombs. And you're just doing insane damage, man. I mean, insane. Now we're on to the exclusive lounge officers. I know I went a little bit off track here and I got a little bit excited, and I included all the Air Force officers with the Ground Force officers, so bear with me on that. But let me explain something right here. This is going to be where I start getting biased, because these officers cost an arm and a leg, and personally I would not pay for them more than I would with Guardian of Truth. But to each their own, because they all are insanely powerful. Rictus Reaper, D tier, only has one skill, maybe two, I would share. And I mean, the fact that his awakened skill, you have to complete your bombing run in order for it to do that massive damage. It's just not worth it. Do not awaken, just focus on skills. Saber of the Nation. Now, you might think I'm crazy here, but I'm going to put him in B tier. The reason why is his tactical skill is completely depicted by range. So the maximum effectiveness is at max range of 5 grids. So that means you're going to need to put him on an ATG or a howitzer. His awakened skill, which looks really good on paper, for me at least, never fires off as often. He does have valuable skills to be shared for artillery units and ATG units, but he has to be in B tier for me because of that. Lady Liberty, easily S tier. Insane tactical damage coefficient of 2000, great skills, and when paired with Eye of Providence, man, the base melter just got put on some speed or crack or whatever you want to call it. He just friggin' got sped up really, really hard. Professor Payne, like I said in my previous video, he has great skills to share. However, his awakened skill and that negative to damage resist really bites on me. Actually, I'll be fair. I will put him in B tier because in comparison to other officers of Exclusive Lounge, that's where he belongs. Lord of Order, S tier. He is what kind of similar to Steel Phoenix, so he is very well, and they would actually pair very well together as well. Steel Phoenix, S tier all the way. Darkwing, A tier. He has no defensive abilities, that's why he's in A tier. He does a ton of damage, and he's very, very good and potent, but that lack of defensive skill puts him at A tier for me. Red Heat, amazing AoE officer, so therefore she's going to go right there. And like I said before, she synergizes with Maestro, and that will buff that up so much. It's crazy. Wings of Wanderlust. Now, we've all seen the testing videos done by 44 Mag, and he's really good, and he's a really good versatile officer. I just don't know where to place him. So, and I haven't played with him, so I don't know how I exactly feel about him. So I need to put him S tier because I don't see really that many weaknesses. He does insane amounts of damage, like ridiculous amounts of damage, higher than, in my opinion, than Darkwing, who's a critical strike expert. I mean, he makes you lose control of your unit, so that can pretty much bait other units into traps. So that's pretty freaking awesome as well. I mean, yeah. But this was my opinion on the officers in the state of the game. Now, like I said, I put the Exclusive Lounge officers in the last and tail end of it because not everyone's going to be pay to win for them, and not everyone's going to have all of these officers a lot because it takes about a year to awaken them, because it took me a year to awaken Saber of the Nation. So, and right now, as you know, I'm working on Red Heat right now. So, let me know if you guys think I'm batshit crazy, or let me know if you agree. Tell me your thoughts down in the comment section down below. Keep in mind, guys, we have two Discords. We have Warpath Lounge and FUBAR's Lounge down in the links in the description below. I hope you guys are having an amazing day. This is FUBAR signing off. I got your 6. Peace.